They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Anti-DOGE town halls. Oh, who is funding these little puppies? That's what we're going to jump into today on the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
So much to talk about today. Again, we're all operating at the speed of Trump, Katie, and the news stories just keep spinning like a ceiling fan. But it's interesting. DOGE is continuing to work, continuing to cut, and a lot of leftist heads have been spinning because of this ask by Elon Musk. You might remember last week, President Trump and Elon Musk did this incredibly good interview with Sean Hannity. And then you had President Trump send a little tweet or a truth to Elon saying, hey, we need to be even more aggressive with these DOGE cuts. Elon Musk says, I'm on it, sir. And so the next thing you know, he has drafted an email to federal employees asking for them to list off 5 things, 5 bullet points, basically, about what they had accomplished in the past week. People have gone nuts about this, Katie, but we are learning that at least 1 million federal workers have actually at least replied in some way to Elon.
One of the parts of the story that I really like is when Trump was asked to explain it. One of the things he said is, we just want to make sure that there's actually somebody at the other end of that email address who's actually working. And I think it's a great point. So I think it is interesting that only 1 million answered. And as so many people have pointed out, for all the people who are complaining, it would have taken them far less time if they had just hammered out a quick email and said, this is what I've been up to. The other thing that's ridiculous about this is all the uproar over, oh my goodness, people might put out classified information. It's like, no, I'm sorry. People know how to write down a simple accomplishment without revealing classified information. So as with most things, it's a lot of hoopla over nothing.
It's so funny. This week, I was in the car traveling around, and I remembered that Joy Reid had her last show on MSNBC. And it was really kind of interesting because she was talking before she started crying about having her last show, which we don't even have to get into. But Joy was talking about how offensive it was for Elon Musk to ask these great and decent federal workers to justify their employment. And I laughed a little to myself because it's really out of touch. Because truly, if you've ever had a sales job, guess what you have to turn in every single day? You have to turn in a call log. You have to turn in the appointments that you had, the status on different accounts that you're working. If you've worked in the private sector, guess what else you have to do? You have to sometimes write a job description for yourself. Sometimes you have to turn in weekly reports to your boss. It's like they are so out of touch that how dare Elon Musk ask for 5 things? I mean, I could name 5 things in an hour that I do at my job, Katie. I can't imagine that this should be a struggle for people. And to go even further to what President Trump said, and I thought this was again, one of those things that you don't even think about. We heard about the fraud with the Social Security checks and how there are people who are 350 years old, literally older than the country, collecting Social Security. He was saying more than just we want to make sure someone's on the other end of the email. We want to make sure that there are still people who are alive holding these jobs, because apparently there is a theory that there are plenty of government workers who have died that are still collecting paychecks. This is how out of control and wasteful and huge our government has gotten.
I can tell you from my time at DHS in the first Trump administration, there were absolutely people collecting a paycheck who did not come to work. And keep in mind, that was pre-COVID. So wow. I think unless somebody has really worked inside the federal government and seen what some people get away with, and by no means am I saying that every federal worker is like this. I saw some people who just gave so much of themselves and really served this country. But I'm telling you, there were plenty of people abusing the system, and everybody should be upset about that. You know, one of the arguments that I've been hearing throughout all of this that to me is the most persuasive is the fact that so many presidents have tried to address this and have failed. And so it is going to take extraordinary measures. It is going to take really dramatic effort to really rein this in. And I think as Americans, we should all be grateful. We really should.
And I think most Americans really are. If you look at the polling that's come out, there is an overwhelming number of people who are supporting, particularly the effort of DOGE and President Trump's agenda. And they're loving the idea of getting money back from the federal government. I know people are kind of paying attention to this, I think primarily because it's Elon Musk who's sending this information out. And he is so prolific on social media that he's constantly telling you what he's doing. And I think that transparency people are seeing. But yet you still have Democrats who are fighting against the waste, the fraud, the corruption, and abuse that's going on in our government. And so these anti-DOGE town halls have popped up. And you guessed it. I mean, you don't even have to try here. When you find out who's funding these, it's George Soros, who is the chaos maker of all time, and has decided it's a great idea to have these town halls pop up so that they can protest all of these government cuts. Now, Katie, I don't think Americans want to see fellow Americans out of work, but I do think that they want more responsibility when it comes to their taxpayer dollars. I was talking to one of my producers on my morning show earlier today, Daniel, you know him, and he was saying, Jen, tax season has a whole different take to it. We're all approaching April 15th. And he said, how many people are going to be paying attention to how much of their income goes to the government this time? And I think I thought it was a really smart point, because I think we are more aware, and I think there is a desire to have more responsibility, to have our elected officials be good stewards of our tax dollars. And I have always said that this little revolution that we're seeing would have come a lot sooner if we got our whole paycheck every single time it's delivered, and we actually had to write that check in taxes, and people could actually see it come out and it just didn't magically disappear in direct deposit. I think we'd see this revolution so much sooner, but it seems like the Democrats can't get on the right page and find a different platform to present to Americans that actually help them. Instead, they're fighting the cuts against fraud. It is nuts.
When I first started getting involved with the conservative movement, one of the statistics that I heard that just absolutely whacked me upside the head is the fact that we spend the first 3 to 6 months actually not bringing in any of that money ourselves. We spend our first 3 to 6 months, depending on which tax bracket you're in, all your work is going to fund the federal government. That's pretty incredible, right?
Yeah.
All that money going to the federal government, and look at the way that they are wasting that money. And I think it's also super interesting. I think what upsets people right now is not just to see the degree of waste, the degree of fraud, the degree of programming that does nothing to support the United States. But now as well, what we're seeing more and more of is actual corruption. So, a little, money going into the wrong pockets. I noticed there was one today that sort of jumped out at me. Rhode Island's Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, turns out he backed legislation that gave millions to his wife's environmental nonprofit called
Coincidental, I'm sure.
Yeah. Called Ocean Conservancy. So I went online, because you can do this. You can look at the nonprofit's 990. And as the CEO of this, quote, nonprofit, she's making $700,000 a year. And that's
a profit, FYI. That is a profit.
Thank you.
That's over a $500,000 profit is what that is. I know. And, it's the same thing. Last week we had Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation in Los Angeles, at Union Station, talking about the California bullet train, which President Trump has been critical of. I mean, this is a project that's 17 plus years in the making. It's a way over budget. It's cost billions of dollars. And Sean Duffy was classy. He said, an unnamed politician's husband took a lot of money. Dianne Feinstein's husband got the contract on that. I mean, these people are shameless, and it's been going on forever. And so you have to ask yourself, if you're a Democrat today, and look, I think there are a lot of Democrats who want to win, come up with a platform, but this isn't it, because nobody is supportive of this kind of behavior by our elected officials, these kind of kickbacks. We want, and you're hitting potholes on the street. You feel like you can't go to school. You feel like you're not safe on the street, but we're paying for male circumcisions in Mozambique. where did we go wrong? But this is very evident. And Mark Cuban, who is not a fan of Trump, who is a businessman, he's on Shark Tank. I think he's got some partial interest in the Dallas Mavericks. He was at a convention this last week, and he talked about these Democrats not being able to get the right message together. Take a listen.
If you gave the Democrats a dollar bill and said you can sell these for 50 cents, they would hire 50 people to decide if they really, to try to figure out how to do it, and then would not know how to sell a dollar bill for 50 cents. If you gave it to Donald Trump and said sell this dollar bill for $2, he'd figure out a way. Right? He'd tell you that $2 bill is huge. I learned that the Democrats can't sell worth.
So
he's right.
I mean, yes, he's absolutely right. I particularly like that little side note. Not only could they not sell the dollar for 50 cents, but they would have to bring in 50 people to help them sell it. I think that right there is the government. But I think where I really take issue with him is that what the Democrats are trying to sell is not a dollar bill. I think what they're trying to sell is toilet paper.
And not even during COVID.
I know, exactly. Exactly. And, so no wonder we see this latest Harvard-Harris poll where the Democrat approval rating is down to 36%. It's like, come on, guys. You'd think they would wake up and realize that what they're selling, nobody wants.
It's been interesting to watch Gavin Newsom through this because, he really wants to run for president in 4 years, or 3, I guess, at this point. And he was out there talking about, again, this investigation into the bullet train. And he's taking a different tack. And this is where he's a really good politician, as much as I can't stand him. He came out and he said, you know what? I want President Trump to come in and look. I want him to come in and take a look at this project. And you know what? That's smart, because what'll happen is they will find all of the waste, and then Gavin Newsom will say, I didn't know it was here. We're going to have an investigation. He's going to bank on that going away. But at least he's actually not fighting it. You've got a ton of Democrats out there saying, we can't have these cuts. We can't have federal employees fired. We can't have departments shut down. Somebody's got to take charge. I don't know who it is over there, but you know what? In the meantime, I love to see it. Now, this is not the only place, by the way, that we are seeing kind of disarray when it comes to Democrats. We're seeing it also in these immigration issues. You have got Tom Homan. I don't know if did you see his speech at CPAC?
No, I was in Hawaii.
You were, that's right. You were in Hawaii. You were on your way back. So I was doing a little hit on Newsmax, and it was right before Tom Homan spoke. And so I actually got to sit and watch the whole thing. And he was absolutely fired up. Take no prisoners. Like, you can tell he is loving this job, like waking up to do this job every single day. And they were talking about all the successes. Of course, border crossings down like 90%. You've got these NGOs, these agencies that are getting zero clients coming in looking for help. I mean, it's amazing what strong leadership can do. But at the same time, you have Democrats who are trying to instill fear in the American people. They are trying to instill fear, I think, in Border Patrol. One of the stories out of Los Angeles is that not only have there been leaks going on within the news media, basically talking about when these raids are coming to Los Angeles, but you also have activists who are anti-ICE activists that are now taking information on Border Patrol individuals, their name, their photo, their likeness, their phone numbers, and they're releasing them online. They're doxing these individuals, which is so dangerous. Whether you support these raids or not, you're putting people's lives in jeopardy, and not just the Border Patrol agents. The people who they are going after are also being jeopardized when you do this kind of thing. It's pretty sad, but this is just some of the disarray. Representative Jayapal, who is one of the squad members, she's on the outside now. She's been kind of quiet. Was talking about the border and just what might happen if these raids continue.
We can't let them continue their lies and their distractions. We can't let them deport the millions of families across this country who have been doing the work that keeps our economy going every day. We can't let them scapegoat and criminalize immigrants who contribute, who are our neighbors, our friends, our churchgoers, our community around us that we deeply love. Immigrants are us. Immigrants are us, and we all deserve respect and dignity. If you look at the food that's on your table, think about who picked it. If you look at your homes, think about who built them. If you look at your vulnerable elders and your kids, think about who's taking care of them.
News out of the Oval Office has been spinning, and it is happening fast, guys. Don't miss a minute. Keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the brand new Trump Report. This is an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at www.salempodcastnetwork.com/Trump. That's salempodcastnetwork.com/Trump.
Oh, we can't lose our immigrants because who's going to clean our houses? It is so, they just don't even see themselves or hear themselves. You know what this reminds me of is I've been following the story about Kathleen Kennedy, who was brought in by George Lucas to help him with Lucas, to help him run Lucasfilms. And then he sold it to Disney and she took over. And she is now stepping down because she has managed to destroy two of their most successful, most iconic franchises, Star Wars and Indiana Jones. She has taken them both in an absurdly woke direction, and lo and behold, viewers hate it, right? So they're tanking. But does she express any remorse? No. She says, oh, this is just people are upset because I'm telling women's stories. And that's what I think of when I think of these Democrats. They cannot acknowledge that what they're trying to sell, nobody wants it anymore. It has been a disaster for America. People don't want it. And it's time for these people to get some humility and recognize they need to rethink what they're doing.
Yeah. And to go back to Jayapal for a second, it's almost insulting. Like, look around at the people. Who's going to clean our house?
I know.
That is so elitist and it is so ridiculous. And this is what I think has really turned people off. It's this kind of pearl clutching behavior, right? Where who's going to clean our house? Who's going to cook our meals? When it comes to Kathleen Kennedy, people can't handle hearing women's stories. No. It's not the way that it is. People just want to hear entertaining stories. That's what they want to hear when they're seeing Star Wars or when they're seeing Indiana Jones. People want law and order when they're talking about the border. People want fairness. It is just so missed on every time the way Democrats, and not even Democrats, the far left has prioritized their agenda, whether they're making movies or they're representing us in Congress. It's just the wrong things are at the top of the list.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So I can't let this day go without talking about the news that came out over the weekend about Dan Bongino. So I know we all know it now, but what I thought was so interesting about this was it just the way I reacted when I saw it, right? And yet I was so pleased by the news. And I saw it was really interesting to watch the social media and just the immediate response when that news came out. And I've been really thinking about this. Why is this so impactful for so many people? I mean, I'm going to say I think his is one of the most impactful appointments. And I think part of it is that people, I really feel because of his role in talk radio, I think people feel that they know him. He's one, he feels like one of us. And I have to say, I've known him since before he ran for Senate in Maryland, right? And he himself, the way he himself describes it, he was a nobody. Nobody knew who he was. And of course, even then, he was a very compelling character. But I think there's just something about somebody who's been so vocal, so transparent. And I think maybe that's what it is, right? He's very open. He's like Trump in that sense. He's very transparent. We know what he thinks. The fact that someone like that is going to be the deputy director of the FBI is just so profoundly gratifying. I'm just so excited about this.
I think it's good for a number of reasons, not only because he has spent the last 3 years doing his radio show, which I am a fan of. I like to listen to his perspective because he really comes from a law and order perspective, which is why I'm glad to see him at the FBI. He's going to be about fairness here. We had been talking earlier, and not in this episode, but just off the air, about vengeance and about justice. And I think he is a pro-justice person. he is also someone who wants to not just let things go and move on. I think he wants to dot all the I's. He wants to cross the T's. On his last broadcast, he was talking about Adam Schiff, and he was talking very much about how we should not let the Russia collusion narrative or the scandal just die down, and that we shouldn't just let people skate with this, because we really need to find out what went on. We need to talk about it. We need to shine light on it to make sure that that kind of weaponization at the FBI does not happen again. And I think that, and politicization doesn't happen again at the FBI. And I think that's really important. So I love that from that perspective. I also think because he is Dan Bongino, he is another person that people are going to pay attention to. And this is going to bring more light to what's going on at the FBI. Similarly, Elon Musk is getting a lot of attention, and people are waking up to the fraud because it's Elon Musk telling you about it. Bongino's got the same thing. And really, in my heart, what makes me the happiest, and I'm going to include you guys, I don't even want to get overtly personal about this, but you and Seb as well. Dan Bongino was making millions of dollars doing his radio show.
Yeah.
Dan Bongino was making a lot of money doing that podcast, doing the radio show. He was set. He gave that all up to make a lot less money, but to do it because it was the right thing to do. And those are the people that I want fighting for our country. Those are the people who I am willing to say, you know what, they're making a personal sacrifice so that they can go in and do a good job. Dan Bongino doesn't need this job. He's doing it because he was called on and because he has something to offer. And so I had a lot of people who were upset about this calling my radio show, some liberals that were upset saying, who's next? Is Jesse Waters going to take another position? You know, these liberals do not like the fact that these are famous television radio personalities that are being tapped to do these jobs. But my answer is these people are making gigantic sacrifices so that they can go and do something that they're equipped to do and that they really want in their heart to do and fix for all the right reasons. And for that, I absolutely respect the decision. I'm so excited he's there. And I think he's going to be a great team with Kash Patel. I really have faith that both of these guys are going to be there doing things for the right reason with justice in the focus. And when I say America first, I don't mean that to be fully Trumpian, but actually America first, putting Americans first with our justice system. That's what we need. We've been long overdue in that department.
I'm so glad you made this point. You know, what I was going to say about Dan is that I think also one of the great things about him is the fact that he has been a business owner. He knows what it's like. He knows how hard it is. I mean, again, I will just say, because I've known him for years and I've kind of watched him work so hard to build what he has. And I think, you know, we need more of that. We've got way too many members of Congress that have been there for years and years and years, many of whom never had a job outside of Congress. They don't know the value of a dollar and how hard Americans have to work to earn what they earn. I also love the fact that I think I love the diversity of his experience. You know, so the fact that he was in the Secret Service, that's invaluable. But, you know, also the fact that he ran for office in Maryland. He knows what that's like. He's done the hard work of going door to door. He won the primary, but he did not win the race. And I think that gives him a really unique perspective. He stepped up and said, I want to, you know, represent the voters of my district, which I think is an incredibly brave, self-sacrificing thing to do. Anybody who's run for office knows I don't think there's anything harder, except maybe working on a coal face or doing something like that, than being, you know, running for office. It is hard work. And he's done that.
And you're getting smacked every single day. I mean, literally, it's not just hard work, but you're getting smacked in the face every single day. It's I don't know. I'm very happy with the decision. I really feel like America is in a really great place right now. I'm still smiling. And I loved your tweet. I thought, are we tired of winning yet? Was your tweet about Dan Bongino.
But now you've really got me thinking. So what would be the perfect job for Jesse Waters?
Jesse, I know. Let's see. What would we put in Jesse Waters for? I think, you know, hey, look, I don't want to knock out Duffy, but I bet he knows fast cars. We could put him in transportation. We could.
Oh, wait. What about putting him as head of NPR?
Oh, my God. Could you imagine? Public broadcasting done. People would go crazy.
Yep.
All right. Before we run out of time today, a story from crazy California. And this one, it's just wild. It's one of those stories where I say, where have all the feminists gone? Like the true feminists. I ask that question when we talk about biological males and women's sports. You ask that question occasionally with these ideas from these leftists. So there is an assemblyman in California who has created an assembly bill, which is 1333. Should be 666 because it's not any good. And it basically makes it harder to have the right to defend yourself if you're being attacked outside of your property. This is a bill that would make it a bigger punishment if you kill someone with justified means. So basically, if you're out, you're being attacked, and you kill someone in self-defense, those protections of self-defense would be gone in California. Now, this would be for every Californian, but I have to think that there are going to be a large number of women, people who are single women, maybe who are living home by themselves, who maybe have a gun for protection, who think, gosh, if somebody attacks me, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to have to fight back. All of their legal protections are going to be gone if this assembly bill passes. Now, the people in California, I think if they learn about this, they're not going to be having it. But the assembly and those Senate Democrats, they make me nervous, Katie, because I feel like something like this could easily pass through because we are pro-criminal and we prioritize the wrong people every single time.
And it's hard for people to pay attention to all these bills. I mean, we're going through this in Virginia.
It is.
I will just say, I remember when I was going through my training to have my concealed carry permit. And what I learned about Virginia is that you cannot use deadly force against somebody who breaks into your house if all they're doing is coming in to steal something, right? If somebody's coming in, grabbing your stereo and leaving, you can't shoot them. And I remember being a little shocked.
Because how are you supposed to know in the heat of the moment?
I know. I completely agree. But in the end, I sort of get it, right? You want to take seriously, like you don't want to see people going overboard. But this proposed legislation in California, I think just goes way too far. So not only are they saying that it's eliminating defending yourself in your home as justifiable homicide, but they're also saying you can't also use deadly force unless you try to flee first.
You got to run.
I think that is so weird. It's so technical and nonsensical.
Well, especially I would say again, especially for women, you've got to run first. Okay, so they catch you and then you've missed your chance to get away. I don't know. It's just not. It's not great. So these California lawmakers propose this bill restricting self-defense, mandating retreat, ending crime-stopping protections, and limiting force to what's reasonably necessary. Now, here's where it gets even crazier. We all know the story of Daniel Penny in New York. Well, this bill would also prevent bystanders from intervening to protect others or stop crimes. Otherwise, they'd face higher legal risks. Yeah. So they're saying bystanders, someone like Daniel Penny might face conviction for holding down a dangerous individual in California. This is really ridiculous. And a gun control group, of course, is behind this. They've got an assemblyman who played along and who wrote the bill. It makes no sense. And I told you, just to add on to your story, when it comes to already the legal ramifications for trying to defend yourself, when I took a home invasion class. And literally, the first thing they tell you to legally protect yourself is if you have someone coming into your home, you call 911, you leave the line open so that 911 will record you shouting, "I have a gun, I will protect myself." You have to warn the person that you have a gun in California. Otherwise, you can end up in jail just for defending yourself, your kids, your property. It's nuts. And we have so much crime already in California. The fact that you're going to limit people stepping in to try to help, good Samaritans who are going to try to help, no longer feel like they can do that. You're creating a really bad situation for a lot of people. It just, I don't know what gets in the minds of these individuals in the assembly, but they get backup. Now, the great thing is that California has become less pro-criminal. And so we just passed Prop 36, which is actually making it easier to convict people who are repeat offenders, especially when it comes to theft and burglary and smash and grab robberies. So the appetite for the people, I think, is not with this, but will the state legislature listen? That's going to be the question.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Sadly, probably not. All right. We have lots to tell you. Make sure that you are keeping up those 5-star reviews. Your comments, they really help us. Sharing Happy Women with your friends. We so appreciate all of you in our Happy Women family. So thank you for doing that. You can connect with us on all of the platforms at salempodcastnetwork.com/Happy Women. You can get Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism, available wherever you get your books, and you can search her out on Facebook. Just look for Catherine Gorka, also on X at Gorka Katie. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as well, Jennifer Horn Radio, and on Truth. Did I say X? Facebook, Instagram, Truth and X at Jennifer Horn. Thanks so much for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.